All right, I want to hear who the fixers are, and then I'm going to give out your number to all the people who need a handyman. No, I'm just joking. Who would you say, who of you would just raise your hand and say, yes, I like to fix things? Yep. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, I like to fix things too. Yeah. Well, I'm Pastor Christian Ann. I haven't met some of you before, but we're glad that you're here. This is North City Church. We like to have a meal together every week. Most times, if it's nice weather, we're going to be out there. So if you're at the pool, we would love for you to join us and hang out. We just take this time in our story or in our time together to share a story from Jesus' life. Because we think that he was the best leader and person to live, and we want to model our life after Jesus. So, I asked that question. If you consider yourself a fixer, I would say I'm a fixer. I'm in the fixing category. So for me, what that means isn't necessarily like handy around the house fixing. It's more of kind of like you got something in your teeth, and we need to fix that. You got something in your teeth right now, yeah. Or like my kids, I see they have dirt underneath their fingernails. We're gonna fix that. I just need to get in on that, right? Those are the kind of fixings that I'm into. Or it's a quick solving of the problem. And, I think that so many of us, we could name 5 things that, we would love to see fixed in our lives. Like if you use the bus and your bus just always seems to be late. You're on the line and you're like, oh, why is this number always late? I just wish I could fix that. Or maybe for you, it's like your car makes this weird noise. Like our car makes this weird noise right now. It has ever since we bought it. The mechanics have no idea. I wish I could just fix that. I don't know. Or I know I'm a dog walker. I have a dog, and every time I walk by, there's always pollution or trash, and I'm like, I don't always have a bag with me, so I pick something up and dirty trash, bring it to the garbage if I can. But there's just so many things. There's those things as well as things like relationships in our lives that we wish had an easy fix. Or I know that climate change, we just wish we could undo some of the damage that people have done over the years. Maybe there's something in your world right now that you're just oh, this is broken. If I'm honest, this is broken in my life. This is not going well. And I think it's really something that you could easily get overwhelmed with. All the problems, all the things that could be fixed that you wish could change that feel broken. And you might ask yourself, how can I do this all? How can I even get to the point where I know where to start? And so I think it's good that we have these impulses in us to see these broken things in our lives restored. We have impulses to say, oh, I wish that could be different. That broken thing could be healed. Now, some of you might be on the place where I get so overwhelmed and I don't even know where to start. Maybe for others of you, you are just finding yourself fixing things and trying to fix things and restore them all the time. And you're exhausted. You're exhausted. So I want to ask us, do we know our limits? Do we know our limits? Because there is someone in that we're going to read about tonight in the Gospel of John. His name's Peter. And Peter was someone who I would say he did not know his limits. He was the most eager, I'm going to fix everything type of guy. And in terms of he was one of Jesus' disciples. He was one who, he was like, sign me up. I'm here. I'm ready. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm going to go. He's eager. And so he just had an idea, okay, this guy, the Messiah, I think, Jesus, is going to fix some stuff. He's going to restore Israel. He's like, sign me up. And he was ambitious. And there was no one else that was as ambitious and willing and wanting things to be the way they should be. Now, before we jump in and learn about Peter, like I said, I consider myself a fixer. And for some of you who know me, I'm going to be a therapist in 3 months, which is wild that people are going to come and want to, talk and open up their lives to me. My therapy journey started, I don't know, what is it now, 15 years ago, 18 years ago when I came to college. And I learned that there was free therapy at my school. If you ever come across free therapy, you hit that up. Like, that is awesome. And so I came from a place where my family was one that I felt like I needed to fix. My family was people that I deeply cared about, and I was one of those kids that like jumped in on the marital conflict. Bad idea. Learned some lessons on that. I was the one trying to give advice to my little brother all the time. And so when it came to therapy, I showed up and I'm like, I know why I'm going to therapy. I'm going to learn all the things that I can do to fix my family. That's exactly what I thought. I thought, what tools could I use to help my little brother? What tools could I use to help this, whatever. That's what I thought therapy was for. I learned some things. In that process, when someone listened to me with their heart and with the heart of God, I learned that I need to be restored. I need to be willing to open my life to be restored, to see any type of restoration happen in the world. And so we've been in this little series talking about Jesus as Jesus is, and then you fill in the blank. And we've been focusing on different things. And so tonight I want to offer you the concept that Jesus is a restorer. Jesus is a restorer. And so we're going to go and find out how Jesus might have restored our friend Peter. Sorry, Kara. Dropping your music. So our story's in John 21. And I'll bring you up to speed here. So many of you might understand who Peter is. He was definitely one of his disciples. And the story that we're jumping in on is actually after Jesus was resurrected. And he appeared to his disciples multiple times. And this one was over breakfast, which preview, we're going to brunch in the fall. So Jesus liked brunch too. That's all I'm going to say. We're having dinner church is moving to breakfast in the fall. But over a meal, Jesus, they're having a breakfast. He actually does this really cool, miraculous thing where he tells them to cast the nets on the other side. He did that like when he first called them to. So it says in the scripture, they didn't even know it. They couldn't see if it was Jesus, but they knew that it was him. And so at this point, overeager Peter, who is in the boat, takes off his outer layers and jumps into the boat to swim over to Jesus. And they have this breakfast on the shore, and then they come to this story. So starting in verse 15. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord." Peter replied, "You know that I love you." "Then feed my lambs," Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said, "you know that I love you." "Then take care of my sheep." A third time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And with Peter says here, I'm hurt. He was hurt by Jesus asking the question a third time. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." I tell you the truth, when you were young, you were able to do as you liked. You dressed yourself and you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and take you to where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to let him know the kind of death that he would die to glorify God. He was crucified later on in life. And then Jesus told him, "Follow me." Now, I think in this scripture, there's three different sort of parts that really stand out to me. The first is the 3 times that Jesus says to Peter, "I love you." The second is sort of this commissioning or this command or this invitation to Peter to do certain things, to feed his sheep, to love the lambs, to provide for them. And then the last is this sort of like other piece about Peter's death and how he's going to stretch out his arms. Those are kind of the 3 different sections that I see there. And what I think is, I think that this interaction between Peter and Jesus is one of the most profound interactions between Jesus and another person. Because there's so little said. There's so little said, and Peter gets it. Now, I think if Peter was in the room, if he was sort of disciplining himself, he would have said, Jesus, let me tell you something. I sinned against you. I denied you 3 times. I chopped off that guy's ear in the garden, and I'm sorry. He would have listed out all the things that he had done wrong. I didn't listen to you here. I didn't believe you. I couldn't believe that none of that happens. In this moment, all Jesus asks him is these 3 questions. Do you love me? And so even though I think Peter was bringing all this shame of all the ways that he had failed him, the question that Jesus asks him is, do you love me? Do you love me? And so what that speaks to me is that this relationship, not the list of things that he had done wrong, this relationship matters the most. And how love is what is needed most for forgiveness. Not the list, not the record, not the judgment. And Jesus invites us into that type of relationship. He invites Peter into that type of relationship. Jesus wants to restore, not condemn. And Peter knows. He knows that he had done wrong. He didn't even have to say it. And so in that moment, before he can go and do any of the things that Jesus just commissioned him to do, he needed to know that he is loved and he is forgiven, and that the broken things in his own life matter. And matter not just because of the offenses that they caused, but because they need to be restored. And Jesus does that in relationship through love with Peter. And so I think it's this honest moment of I came to my limitations. In that moment around the campfire, when people asked Peter if he knew him, he denied him. He denied that he knew Jesus. And he was driven by fear. And in this moment, Jesus knows the exact thing he needs is love. And that's the beginning of his restoration. And so I just think that this is a good moment for us to pause, because when we get to the point, when we notice other things in other people, it's our first thing. We're like, oh, that person bothers me. I got people that bother me. I'll be honest. There's things that rub me the wrong way. Is my first instinct to go and change them? Or is my first instinct to say, what's going on inside of me that might need to be restored? Because it looks like the first and foremost thing that needs to happen is that place of restoration before Peter's sent out and does amazing things in God's kingdom. So that's just maybe something to wonder about, is that there might be something that needs to be restored in me before I can serve, before I can love, before I can correct others. So that second piece. He says to love, to feed my lambs. He says to feed my sheep, to take care of my sheep. And I think a lot of times there's some of us who say, I've done so many things wrong, there's no way I could be a part of God's kingdom, or there's no way I'm not qualified, I can't do those things. I can't serve God. And we sort of see it as okay, I got to totally clean up my act. Now, did Peter stop being ambitious? Did he stop being eager? Did he stop making mistakes? No. He actually keeps going. I'm sure he made tons of mistakes. We don't see him as loud and proud as the 3 times he denied Jesus. But there's not before you go and serve me, there's this figure out all your stuff. And I just think about this. I struggle with being an anxious person sometimes. My kids rile me up. And if I said, okay, let me figure out all of my anxiety before I go and parent them, that would actually be neglect, right? Just be real. We can't say, I'm going to do all this stuff first and take care of everything to get to the point of completion and perfection. No, then we're missing out on Jesus, who's actually here to say, I am going to do this with you. And you don't have to finish all of yourself, get yourself all ready and perfect before you serve me. This is a cyclical thing. This is something that over and over, I restore you, you come and partner with me. You get to feed my sheep. I restore you, come and partner with me. Come and love my lambs. Serve me in my kingdom. And so do you sort of take yourself out of the game of serving and loving God and serving other people because of some of the mistakes or some of the flaws in your own life? I think that Jesus has restoration along the way for you, for us. Another piece is that Christians don't always have the best reputation for being that loving presence. And I think it's part of it is jumping and being too eager to help and to serve. And I actually think that sort of not only depletes us, and if we skip that sort of restoration, that love and relationship with Jesus part first, if we skip that, then we're serving and loving other people out of an empty place. And I'm in an ethics class right now, which is both terrifying and fascinating, because our professor actually had us read complaints against helping professionals. That was our whole assignment one week, was to read the board of complaints for the helping professionals. It was disgraceful. These people that are certified therapists, that are certified doctors, that are certified lawyers, here to help others and to be people of restoration in the world who have caused so much harm, embezzling money, doing drugs in their own home with clients. I mean, I can get like real detailed, and it's all actually public information if you want to go look it up. It's really sad. People having sexual relations with their clients. That is actually the top complaint. And you think, how do you get to that point? How do you get to that point of hurting other people when you're supposed to be helping them? It's because you didn't get restored first. You didn't let the restoration happen in your own life, and you're trying to get your needs met by these other people, by your work. And that's probably been the biggest takeaway for me is like, oh, I might love helping other people, but if I'm not willing to be restored and helped in my own life and by a God who is constantly trying to restore, then I'm going to be doing that out of a totally empty place. And that's going to give a reputation to Jesus. Hey there. Going to give a reputation for Jesus, the church, of hypocritical lives. Right? How these people love all these people, and then all of a sudden, they go hurt all these people. It's coming from an empty place. And so do we know that love of Jesus? Are we willing to confront some of the limitations and the flaws that we have in our lives as part of our restoration process of serving other people? All right, the last little bit that I want to kind of just name here is that when Jesus is talking about Peter dying, it's sort of like, wow, why does he have to go to there? But what I see in that, in sort of this restoration of this forgiveness process of Peter, of he's doing this so personally, is that he's like, do you trust me? Do you trust that the restoration that I care about is beyond you and that you can play your part? But are you willing to let go of control? Are you willing to let go of control, even to the point of maybe your own life? And I think that's an area that I personally need to grow, is that I'll fix things and try to seek help and all the things, get all the tools for people as I can. I still am in that zone, I think, as that young, 18-year-old was trying to do. But I can't. I'm just one person. And do I trust that there's a God who is restoring completely outside of me? That's actually his whole mission, is to restore this world to the loving place that he created it and wanted it to be. He's restoring people that seem beyond repair. And so the invitations, I think, tonight, that I wonder what stands out to you from this scripture, is maybe just asking the question, what do I need to hear? Do I need to hear that Jesus has got it? That it's not up to me to restore this world, but I can play my part? Do you need to feel like you can be invited in, even in the midst of your flaws, to the restoration work? Or maybe it's just that starting point that he not only wants to restore you, but you can trust that he's going to do it graciously. He's going to do it through love and not through judgment when you're in his presence. So Jesus as the restorer, what's standing out to you tonight? And what difference does this make? What difference does it make in your life? So I'm going to give you about 10 or so minutes to talk about it around your tables and just give a chance for other people to share, 2 minutes each or so. Grab 2 to 3, 4 people max in a group, and then we'll bring you back. We like to talk about it for a little bit before we end our time. So we'll bring you back in a few minutes.